Welcome to the Eminence Legacy Podcast, your ultimate destination for self-help, self-development, and inspirational stories. We are on a mission here to guide you on a transformative journey. In each episode, we'll dive into powerful insights, practical tips, and moving stories that will inspire and empower you to rise to your eminence. Join us as we unlock the secrets to personal growth, overcome challenges, and build the legacy you've always dreamed of. Get ready to elevate your life and reach new heights with the Eminence Legacy Podcast. Let's rise to our eminence together.
How's it going, everyone? And welcome to the Eminence Legacy Podcast. My name is Alfonso Cadena, and I'm joined here by my co-host,
Jose Luis Cadena, and thank you for joining us.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about budgeting because it's something that applies to every single family or individual. It's so basic to everything that we do because like a lot of times I look up things as to how much does it cost to live in this country, and usually there's like a dollar amount attached for each day. Because there's one thing that we can understand, and it's that there is a cost of living. And as prices continue to increase, like it's something that we need to keep in mind. How can we prepare for the future? Because there's some things that are going to happen, right? So I just booked like a boat tour, and like one of the things that it said there is that expect Murphy's Law, which I'm assuming is, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So they're preparing you for the worst. And, that's something that we can expect to in life, right? Because there's just so many risks out there. Like the more time you spend driving, the more chances there are of you getting on an accident, right? The more assets that you have, the more chances is that one of them is going to get damaged. The older you get, you might have more health risks. The more children you have, there's probably, all these little things that are just gonna mushroom. And a lot of times, what's the other saying that goes is that like tragedy comes in three, right? So like one thing breaks down, and there's two things that are going to break down as well. And one of the first reactions that a lot of people have is to take out payday loans or to put it on the credit card. And the problem with this is that it's not a winning strategy, because the more you add to these debts, it's less money that's going into your pocket and is going into someone else's.
If you don't have a contingency plan, a lot of times what you're going to be left with is just a big mess. And a lot of times, like they say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And a lot of times we end up doing just that.
Right. So the average household debt I was looking up is $6,100 in credit card debt. And I know a lot of people that are just barely giving minimum payments, and that's hoping that you pay on time, right? Because that, in addition to that, you're going to have fees added to that if you miss your payments. So once again, we go back to the same thing where you don't have a winning strategy, because everything that comes in, it's already owed to someone else. So that's where budgeting comes in. So it's like the most basic floor plan that you can do. Now, a lot of times we talk about wellness and fitness, and we talk about, having a plan for when you go to the gym, because it's going to cut down your 2 hours that you were there is going to cut it down to an hour, because you're not going to be doing guesswork. You know exactly what you're there to do. Well, in the beginning of the month or bi-weekly or weekly, however it is that you expect those funds to come in, it's good to have a plan already in place so you know what it is that you're working with. Now, it's interesting because like there's one channel that I particularly enjoy watching. It's with Caleb Hammer, and it's amazing how many people don't know how much income is coming into their household. So that's a very one of the most basic things you can start with is figuring out how much of the income that's on your pay stub is actually take home pay. And I think as we're going to look into the concept of budgeting a lot, I think one of the main reasons that people don't budget is that they're afraid of what they're going to find, right? So it's like, don't look behind the closet door because the boogeyman is hiding there, or don't look under the bed, right? Because the monster's hiding underneath. And I think it's the same thing with our finances, right? That people they're aware that there's an issue, that there might be an overspending issue, or that they're just going to feel more overwhelmed. But in reality, there's like actually some sort of comfort and more confidence knowing where every dollar is going to. What do you think?
A lot of times the problem is not as bad as it seems. It's just mismanagement of money that we probably are placing allocating it in the wrong area. And there's a lot of times little things that we could probably modify to be able to save that money or utilize it for something more important than what you thought you had it for.
Right. And everybody has like a different, like, let's say like you work in sales, it might not always be a consistent payday in the sense that it's going to be based on commissions. So I could understand why some people might not, like the information that we're going to go over here is mostly for people that know like when there's a certain amount to account for in each single pay period. However, there's still basic principles that you can rely on, particularly having a rainy day fund or an emergency fund, however you want to refer to it. Or like if you have an income that fluctuates, at least you have something in plan for whenever a bad month does come by. You have somewhere to get it from rather than having to borrow a loan to make it by, just because, work in an unpredictable market and all of a sudden you don't receive the usual earnings that you expect on a monthly basis. So even though like it may change from person to person, generally the principles continue to be true. It was true for our forefathers, for our grandparents, and it's stuff that we can continue to use today. So that's something to keep in mind. But the very first step to this is knowing how much is actually coming in. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where you're going to want to figure out, is there more going out than what there is coming in on every given month? And a lot of people might not know the answer to this.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have checks and balances on this, how much is coming in and how much is actually going out. And again, the idea of writing down your expenses will be to actually know how much money you need at the end of the week or at the end of the month. But a lot of people might have questions, okay, how can I save if I'm living paycheck to paycheck? Well, that's why we would like you to sit down and create a budget to find out exactly how much money you're actually needing in order to create or devise a plan to be able to start the savings.
Right, because what it's going to force you to do is when you actually go sit down and go through a statement, which is something I did years ago, and you start, okay, how much are we actually eating out in every given month? And then we would go to highlighting each one of those items in that statement, and that gave us a rough idea of what it is that we were spending on every single month of just eating out. So like you mentioned, like a lot of times we say, well, we don't have enough to cover the bills or to save, and the very first thing you want to do is find out, okay, how much is coming in and where is the money going to? Because you might find out that you're overspending on things that you don't really need. Now, it's something that we need to, like whether you're a parent or perhaps your parents didn't teach you this, but like we have to be able to distinguish the difference between needs and wants, right? I mean, you have shelter, transportation, you have clothing, food, water, but everything else, it's basically like a want. And one of the things that we've talked about too before is that, this idea that you're going to save money, by eating out, because it's basically the same amount than if you were to buy something in a grocery store and cook in the house, which is, nothing is further from the truth. I mean, you can buy like a bag of chicken breast, which is, and basically cook a meal for the entire week, which is something that we do because it's just so convenient. We just like get, food prep for a Sunday. And then like the day before, like we go to work, you just prepare your lunch that you're going to be taking from what we cooked that Sunday. And I mean, we're all set. I mean, it's not an explosion of flavors in our mouths, like now maybe there is, I know in your case, you're very good in the kitchen. So you have a lot of like hacks that you could probably share with us. Nonetheless, that's besides the point is that, like you're saving money, it's a healthier option, because you're cooking from home and, it's basically contributing towards your long-term goals, rather than having to go out and spend $20 on a single meal that you're probably going to finish.
I think that another thing is a lot of us don't really have a finance goal. Like we don't have like a goal in place to say, okay, this is what we're working toward. This is what we're trying to accomplish. A lot of times we're just trying to survive, trying to pay those bills, trying to get by, and that kind of also messes with the budgeting because you really don't have a target. You're just trying to like turn off all his fires versus you trying to work towards, like, let's say in this case, a savings, a little rainy day of fun. We're not really working towards that because we're trying to put out so many fires. And not to mention, how many subscriptions do we have out there that we're not really using? And we forget about them, and they're just there, and you're paying $5, $10, and that's a real good way for them to make money because they keep the subscription so low that you forget about that actual payment that's coming out of your bank account every month.
Yeah, and like now that you mentioned that, when it comes to going back to the previous point that you made about setting goals, it's basically impossible to do that without a budget, right? Because we've talked about this too, like in other episodes, the difference between a dream and a goal. A goal is something that actually has steps on how to get there, and without the budget, really you don't know where the money's going to. You're never going to have enough. And even if you did have like that sudden pay raise or get a new job that is, that's producing more income, you're still going to struggle because none of the habits are changing. You simply increase your depth in like rather than having to get everything in order. And this, unfortunately, this bleeds out to the bigger culture because one of the things that we complain about in every election cycle is about it's about the debt that the United States has and always increases the deficit. But we have a whole culture that is built upon the idea that it's okay to live in debt for the rest of your life, right? So, like, I mean, what we're doing in our personal lives and in our families is basically bleeding out to the general culture, to the general audience, and it becomes acceptable for our government to like be irresponsible with their budgeting because we think because I mean, it stems from this idea. So yeah, like, I mean, without a budget, you're not going to be able to set a goal. And you're not going to be able to see any progress because you have no idea where anything is going. Like you mentioned with the subscriptions, you don't like it might just be like $5, but it's like, what if that could be, like saved and with interest, like in the end of the year, you're still going to have more. You're still, and I know that the poor man mentality is going to say, "Whoa, it's just $5." So it's like, well, I mean, it's all these individual decisions that is causing you to be broke the entire time. With that, but when it comes to like budgeting, I mean, there's different systems out there that you could definitely look into. Like 50, 30, and 20 is one that is very popular, which is you try to like narrow down your scope to where 50% of whatever you bring home is going to go into necessities. So the stuff that we talked about, the utilities, the home, your transportation. And then 30% for your wants, which is actually pretty, like pretty generous, to yourself if you think about it. And 20% is going to go down and pay debt. Now, again, I mean, this is assuming that like you're coming in this from a fresh perspective, but in the scenario where you're probably drowning in debt, then you're not going to have much room for pleasure. And that's the thing. I mean, that 30% can only work if you can free yourself from like from an overwhelming amount of debt. That so like 50, 30, 20, as good as it is, when we're talking about like for the statistics that we started with, that the average American has close to $6,000 to $7,000 in debt, it's not going to look like that. But at the very least, we can figure out how much of when we make the budget, we can figure out how much is going to each one of these items. Another one that's like very old school, but it's called the envelope system, right? But I mean, but this one's a little bit more difficult. I know there's different accounts that kind of use like a method like it, but the idea of it is that you have a certain amount allocated in each envelope for the things that you need for that month. I personally just use a spreadsheet, but there's plenty of like apps out there nowadays that like can help you like with your budgeting. So but at the very least, like this is something that we need to get started in.
At the end of the day, any system that you go with, you need to write things down. You need to actually calculate your monthly income, track your expenses, and after that, set your finance goals and then apply whatever system you're going to apply. In our case, we're suggesting the 50/30/20 rule. Again, this is if you already have a good, I guess, you're already managing okay your accounts. If not, you could always use resources like Dave Ramsey, Financial Freedom. They have pretty good tips on how to get ahead as far as getting rid of your debt. Of course, getting rid of your debt is just like the start of it, because after you get rid of it, you need to maintain a healthy financial lifestyle.
Yeah, all of this is going to be based on consistency and longevity. If you're the type of person that is always switching your system, then you're never going to stick around long enough to see any progress. But you should not, nonetheless, should be like, if you are going to stick with this, you should monitor your progress, and you're going to see that again. I mean, your net worth is going to go up, like your debts are going to go down. I mean, that's the good trajectory that we want people to see. But in the end of the day, like a lot of the issues stem down to our basic behavior, our choices, and our ability to build habits, our ability to enforce delayed gratification, our ability to know what's good for us, and for 1 second not to just think about ourselves, right? If you're married, think about your spouse. If you have kids, think about them. Like, any issues that you do not fix is going to bleed over and it's going to affect them as well. So I mean, this is really, in reality, what this comes down to is really to the heart, right, of who we are and what we want to be. But one of the things too that I thought was like there was a lot of wisdom in is when you look at your statements, you can see where your heart is, right? You can see what you love the most, because that's where most of your money is going to be going to. So, I mean, so this is, like, stuff that we should be bringing to the table, discussing it with our loved ones, and start building a plan around it.
Most definitely. And again, I think a good idea is always, even after you have a set plan, it's always good to go back and review it periodically to see where you're at and adjust accordingly to your new, I guess, seasons in life, because everything's going to change. Like, let's say one of your kids is about to graduate and you're going to, make the expense about maybe getting them a car or making a party for them or getting the cap and gown, whatever it is that you need to budget, then you have to kind of fix it in there, and try to make your budget mirror your season.
Right. And once again, I mean, I can't stress enough that, like, I mean, this is, like, because you're bringing up about, once again, that it's not something personal. It's something that, like, that is going to affect the people around us. And we still can't, I know it's cliche, but it's still true. That's still one of the leading causes of, like, divorces is going to be finances as well. So again, I mean, this is going to continue to haunt you. So, like, the earlier you deal with it, the better. There's no time like the present. The time is now. So, so guys, go ahead, look up a budget. There's plenty of tools out there. Just take a moment to look at your statement, see where your monthly expenses are going to, find out what it is that how much money is coming in each month, and find out if more is going out of the household rather than coming in.
Remember that the budgeting is a journey, not a race, and don't be discouraged if it takes time to find the right balance and the perfect mix. It's always something that's adjustable, and you could always go back to the drawing board and get back in a set of mode where you could plan out things.
That's right. And that concludes our episode this week. If you want more information about us, make sure you visit us at eminentlegacylive.com. Be sure to leave us a review and share if you when you have a chance. And if you would like also to make any contributions so that we can continue to make this programming, feel free to visit our Patreon so that we can continue to run this show.
Thank you guys for joining us and have a great week.
Bye bye.